It's really impossible to be a proper Christian and not read.
Their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Stand up, speak out, and pray that God will bless America again.
Christ, not Congress, will be what saves this country.
And I think you all should get a copy of God Bless the USA Bible Now and help spread our Christian values.
The only border we need to secure is that between church and state. I said what I said.
All right, welcome back to another LED Live with Samuel Tucker. Welcome to the show again.
Yes, good to be back.
We are discussing church and state, and we are going to talk about how the United States is potentially walking into this same pathway that we have seen in history happen before.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing?
Yeah.
You will want to know this information because where it sounds like a great thing, we want God. We want God in everybody's life, but God is never forceful. He's never like, you have to do this, otherwise there's going to be consequences. And I think when you start placing the conversation in that field, bad things happen.
Very bad. Very bad.
How are we going to walk into this?
Yeah, so a lot of it, and as we're going to see, a lot of it is through manipulation. A lot of it is through manipulation. So it's a process that the ruling elite of really every civilization has used in order to make the populace to co-sign with what they try to do. And so we're going to get into some of that. You know, in our last session, we were talking about the influence of Roman Catholicism, the church and state with Constantine. And the reason why that's so necessary, and especially for our listeners, you know, that didn't watch that, we would highly encourage you to go back and look at that, because that really sets the groundwork for the psychology behind why the things today are going the way they're going. Because there's like two factions. You have people who sincerely want morality and proper Christian principle in society. And then there's a larger faction, especially among those that are leading this movement, who have the power, that are not doing it because necessarily they love Christ, but because they want the earthly power that comes with it. And so we'll see some of that. So on the screen here, this is a symbol of something called social engineering. I don't know if we're familiar with that concept of social engineering. So as I'm pretty sure our audience can see, this is this ideology of left and right. You know, it's been coined as the Hegelian dialectic. And it's very interesting, just again, the iconography. You can see here at the cage at the very bottom, what's in the cage is freedom. So you have a puppet master, you have a person that's being manipulated with this left and right, and true freedom is in the cage. And it's amazing because the book of Isaiah actually talked about this, that he that, you know, departed from evil would make himself a prey. And so, you know, we even see this from a Bible standpoint. But yeah, we're just going to go over, at least initially, a lot of the forces that are being used to manipulate the consciences of men to get to this point of wanting this fusion of the church and state. So this is a woman by the name of Marilyn Ferguson. She was an occult writer. She wrote a very influential book called The Aquarian Conspiracy. I don't know if you ever heard of that book before. She wrote that a leaderless but powerful network is working to bring about radical changes in the United States. Its members have broken with certain key elements of Western thought, and they may have even broken continuity with history. And just building on that, this is a symbol of television. Now, we know that television is one of the great educators of modern society.
Yeah, there's a reason why they call it a program.
No.
It's programming you.
Exactly. Very good point. Very good point. There's a book called Television and International History. And especially when, as we're trying to educate ourselves and even the work that we're doing here, reading is so essential. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where so few of us read anymore. And, you know, I mentioned this in the last segment. I hated reading growing up. I mean, with a passion. But it's really impossible to be a proper Christian and not read, because we learn about God through the Bible, and you have to read in order to gain this. And so this says, television has become to delineate for us the boundaries of transgressions. The medium operates as a subtle instructor with the complicity of the audience. This says, at the bottom there says, the television image has thus to come to govern the senses and the conscience, to offer an ordering of things, even to exaggerate the chaos and orderlessness of things. So to just make that very clear, this is a symbol of the news media. And I know that especially during former President Trump's, presidency, this idea of fake news was really popular. And while this is not an endorsement of Donald Trump, there is a reality that unfortunately a lot of the news media is into manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see that when you see the news clips where they're all saying the exact same thing. I
Oh
mean,
my
word
goodness.
for word
Scary.
verbatim. That is not possible in just a randomized telling of whatever's happening in the world. That's a script being handed to somebody and all these news channels repeating it.
Exactly.
Any way you have them grouped this way?
Oh, why?
What?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So I got this off of a particular website. So this was talking about, I think in the middle was maybe kind of neutral. To the far left is like left-leaning outlets, and to the like, I guess, quote-unquote, far-leaning right outlets. You get that,
Yeah.
get that in the dichotomy.
Which is a matter of perspective.
Exactly.
Because if you're listening to CNN all the time, you think everything on the other side is completely bogus.
Exactly.
And people that are, there are people that even listen to these ones in the middle column, and they, they have opinions about every other news network or
That's
news
true. Very true.
network that they don't listen to.
Well, I think when the assassination attempt on Trump happened, and it was almost like the left-leaning ones were saying like, "Oh yeah, he just fell," and I was like, "How did you get that wrong?" Like, you know what I mean? Like they would just even leave out some very key words and stuff, and then that's interesting.
It's crazy.
I thought maybe they were grouped by ownership.
Ownership. Oh, that's a very good point as well. This is from a book called To Kill a Nation. It says the U.S. media, as with most of the news media, nations are not free and independent. They are owned and controlled by largely conservative corporate cartels that adhere to the self-serving neoliberal ideology of international capital. So this is essentially saying that the news media is primarily concerned with ensuring the financial interests of multinational corporations, that they stay in their proper place. And even on another point, I know that we're talking about church and state, but a lot of times, what we've seen even in our travels and speaking, and I'm pretty sure you all have seen this, as well, that even a lot of us as Christians are not interpreting current events in light of the Bible, but we're interpreting current events in light of Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and all these things. Yeah. And so this happens a lot.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times when people are thinking about politics, especially from the Christian perspective, they're thinking about certain value systems and stuff like that. You're talking about different events that happened, the Trump, attempted, assassination. People are saying that, this was, prophesied, this prophetic and all of this. And that's not prophecy. That's not prophetic. That's not in the Bible.
Right. I heard people equating that to like the deadly wound and then
Lord have mercy.
healed, and it's like, what?
That has nothing to do with that.
It's reversed.
Yeah.
So you have the Bible, which spells everything out, and then the news is everything as it's happening.
Yeah.
And people try to take the news and then insert it into Bible prophecy instead of using Bible prophecy to look for what's in history and look for the news.